Every small town has a road that parents warn their kids about. In my town, it was Hollow Road, a stretch of cracked pavement that cut through the woods like a scar. It wasn't on any map, but everyone knew where it was. They said if you drove down it past midnight, strange things would happen. Engines stalled, radios went haywire, and sometimes people never came back. When I was a kid, I thought it was just an urban legend, the kind of story older kids told to scare you. But then, in 1998, a boy from my high school named Ethan Myers vanished on that road. The police searched for weeks, found his car abandoned, doors wide open, keys still in the ignition. No blood, no body, just gone. His disappearance was the reason most people avoided Hollow Road completely. But not me. Years later, when I was 22, my curiosity got the better of me. I was working night shifts at a gas station, and one night a customer came in, an old man with pale eyes. He bought cigarettes, leaned across the counter, and whispered, "You should stay off Hollow Road tonight. She's out walking." I asked him who she was, but he just smiled, showing yellow teeth, and left without another word. That was the first time I ever heard about the woman on Hollow Road. After the old man left, his words kept echoing in my head. She's out walking. That night after my shift, I couldn't resist. I got into my beat-up Honda Civic and drove straight for Hollow Road. It was almost 1 a.m. when I pulled onto the cracked pavement. The streetlights ended a mile before, leaving nothing but my headlights cutting through the darkness. The forest pressed close on both sides. The trees here were older, taller, and thicker than anywhere else in town, their branches stretching out overhead like twisted hands. Even with the windows rolled up, I could smell the damp rot of leaves and soil. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. No crickets, no owls, just silence. Then my radio turned on by itself. It was just static at first, but beneath the hiss, I swear I heard whispers. My hand trembled as I reached for the dial to turn it off, but the knob was frozen, refusing to budge. The whispers grew clearer, layering over one another in broken voices, saying things I couldn't quite make out. The only words that cut through were, "Don't stop, keep driving." I pressed harder on the gas, trying not to look anywhere but the road. That's when I saw her. A woman stood on the side of the road, about 30 feet ahead, dressed in a long white gown that hung loose and torn. Her head was bowed, long black hair covering her face. She wasn't moving, just standing perfectly still. My stomach dropped. I knew I should keep driving. Every instinct screamed at me to go, but my foot eased up on the pedal as though something unseen was guiding it. My car slowed to a crawl until I was right beside her. And then, without lifting her head, she turned toward me. I didn't see her face, thank God, but the hair shifted just enough that I caught pale skin underneath, stretched too tight, almost waxy. My headlights flickered, and my engine sputtered. She began to walk alongside my car. But here's the thing, no matter how much I accelerated, she kept pace. 40 miles per hour, 50. Her bare feet dragged across the pavement, her body stiff, yet she never fell behind. I slammed the pedal down, racing forward. The forest blurred past until finally, the road opened back up into town. Streetlights reappeared, and when I looked in my rearview mirror, she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I told my coworker about what happened. He paled and said, "You saw her too?" Then he leaned closer and whispered, "They say if you look directly at her face, you'll vanish like Ethan did. No trace, no body, nothing. She takes you back into the woods, and you don't come out." For days I couldn't shake what I'd seen. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured that woman's pale skin beneath her hair and the sound of her dragging feet scraping against the pavement. I promised myself I wouldn't go back. But the thing about Hollow Road is, once you've been there, it doesn't let you go so easily. It started with dreams. In them, I was always driving the same road, headlights cutting through endless trees. Sometimes she was standing on the shoulder, waiting. Other times, she was in the back seat, visible only in the mirror. And once, she was crouched in the middle of the road, smiling with no lips, just teeth. I'd wake up gasping, the smell of damp leaves heavy in my room. A week later, the dreams bled into reality. I was walking home from work one night, cutting through the quiet back streets of town, when I heard the faint drag of bare feet behind me. I spun around. No one there, but the sound continued, always just a few steps behind. That's when I realized it. She had followed me off Hollow Road. I wasn't the first, either. When I finally confided in my coworker again, he told me about Mary Langley, a waitress from town who'd vanished in 1979. Before she disappeared, she claimed she was being haunted by the woman. People dismissed it as nerves or exhaustion, but then Mary was gone. Car found empty. Keys in the ignition. Same as Ethan Myers. The police report from back then mentioned something else. On the dashboard of her car, scratched into the dust, were the words. I looked at her face. After hearing that, I became obsessed. I went to the local library, digging through old newspaper archives. Hollow Road kept showing up. Strange accidents, missing persons, cars abandoned without explanation. The pattern stretched back decades, maybe longer. Some articles mentioned an old farmhouse that once stood deep in the woods, long before the road was paved. It had burned down in the 1930s, killing a woman inside. Her name was Abigail Holloway. The road was named after her family. I found a grainy photograph in one of the papers. Abigail, in her 20s, standing stiffly beside the farmhouse. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken, her hair long and dark. Even though it was just a picture, I felt cold all over staring at it. It was her, the woman on Hollow Road. That night, something changed. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Groggy, I reached for it. No caller ID. Against better judgment, I answered. On the other end, there was nothing but static. Then, faintly, a whisper. Look at me. I threw the phone across the room. But the line didn't disconnect. The whisper kept coming, louder, overlapping voices, all saying the same thing. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. I covered my ears, but when I did, I realized the sound wasn't coming from the phone anymore. It was inside my room, and I swear to you, someone was standing in the corner. I didn't move for nearly an hour, just sat frozen in bed, staring at the corner where I thought I saw her. The shape never shifted, never breathed. It was like a smear of shadow darker than the rest of the room. Eventually, exhaustion dragged me under, but even in sleep, I wasn't safe. That night, the dream was clearer than ever. I was back on Hollow Road, headlights dim and flickering. The woman stood in the middle of the road, hair covering her face. But this time, I couldn't stop the car. My foot was glued to the accelerator, pulling me toward her. Just before impact, she lifted her head. I woke up screaming. After that, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I needed answers. I went back to the library, this time asking the oldest librarian, Mrs. Calloway, if she knew anything about Hollow Road. Her face went pale and she whispered, "You shouldn't be asking about that place." But when I pressed, she leaned closer and said, Abigail Holloway was accused of witchcraft. They said she cursed the townsfolk, caused livestock to die, children to fall sick. When the farmhouse burned, some claimed they saw her walking in the flames, smiling. No one ever found her body. That explained the stories, but not why she kept appearing to drivers. Why did she haunt the road? Why take people? Mrs. Calloway only said one more thing before refusing to talk further. If you see her face, you belong to her. That night, I told myself I wouldn't dream. I drank, I took sleeping pills, anything to knock me out. But when my eyes closed, I was back there again. Same road, same forest. Only this time she was already in the passenger seat. Her head was bowed, hair falling over her shoulders. The smell of smoke filled the car, thick and choking. I tried to open the door, but the locks wouldn't budge. The engine roared, pulling us deeper into the woods, though my hands weren't on the wheel. Slowly, she lifted her head. I couldn't see her face yet, but her voice filled the car. A low rasp that wasn't meant for human ears. You've seen me once. Next time, you won't wake up. I shot up in bed, drenched in sweat, lungs burning like I'd actually inhaled smoke. The next morning, I found something that made my blood run cold. On my car windshield, in the thin film of dust, were words written with a finger, "Drive tonight." The words on my windshield stayed burned into my mind all day. Drive tonight. Every rational part of me screamed not to do it. But some part of me, maybe curiosity, maybe the curse itself, knew I didn't have a choice. If I ignored her, she'd just come closer, until I finally looked. So just after midnight, I found myself back in my car, heading toward Hollow Road. The streets were dead silent, houses dark, as if the whole town was asleep on purpose. By the time I reached the cracked pavement, my hands were trembling on the wheel. The forest swallowed me. I drove slowly, scanning the sides of the road. For the first mile, nothing. No sound, no movement, just the suffocating blackness between the trees. My radio flickered alive again, whispers overlapping in a dozen voices. Keep driving. Don't stop. Look at me. I turned the volume knob, but it spun uselessly, locked in place. My headlights dimmed until the road ahead was just a dull glow. And then I saw her. She stood dead center in the road, head bowed, arms limp at her sides. Same torn gown, same dragging hair. This time, she was waiting. My first instinct was to slam the brakes, but I remembered the warning. Don't stop. So I pressed harder on the gas, praying the car wouldn't stall. As I neared her, the air in the car grew icy. My breath came out in clouds. The smell of smoke filled my lungs. My chest tightened, but I kept my eyes locked on the cracked pavement ahead, refusing to look. When I passed her, the engine sputtered and coughed like it was dying. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. That's when I heard it, coming from the back seat, a whisper. So close, it was like lips brushing my ear. Look at me. I couldn't help it. My eyes flicked up to the rearview mirror, and for half a second, I saw her face. It wasn't human anymore. Skin gray and cracked like burned wood. Mouth stretched too wide, filled with jagged teeth. Her eyes, black pits with fire burning deep inside. The mirror shattered. I lost control of the car, swerving off the road. The last thing I remember is the trees rushing toward me, the crunch of metal. And then, darkness. I woke up in a hospital 2 days later. Broken ribs, concussion, a fractured arm. They told me I was lucky to be alive. My car was totaled, found crumpled against a tree. But here's the thing. When the police pulled it from the woods, they found something inside. Scratched deep into the dashboard, with marks too sharp to have been made by me, were the words, "He looked." They told me I must have imagined it. Shock, trauma, painkillers. But I know the truth. I saw her face. And sometimes, late at night, I hear dragging footsteps outside my window, getting closer. I don't think I escaped Hollow Road. I think it followed me home. Every small town has its scars. In my hometown, it was the old Miller farm on the outskirts. The land had been abandoned for decades, but everyone knew about the well that still stood behind the crumbling barn. People said if you leaned too close, you could hear voices drifting up from the bottom. Not echoes, not water, voices. Children crying, men whispering, women screaming. I never believed the stories until I was 17. That summer, my best friend Josh dared me to sneak out at midnight and meet him at the farm. "Just to check out the well," he said with a grin, "see if the stories are true." The farm was a skeleton by then. Roof caved in, walls leaning, the air heavy with mold and rot. The only thing that still stood tall was the stone well, moss crawling up its sides like veins. Its wooden cover had rotted away years ago, leaving only a black hole yawning beneath the moonlight. We stood over it, peering down. It was so dark, it felt less like looking into water and more like staring into another world. Josh dropped a pebble inside. No splash, no thud, nothing. "That's impossible," I whispered. Then we heard it, a voice, thin and ragged, rising from the depths of the well. "Help me!" Josh laughed nervously. "Okay, that's creepy. Somebody's screwing with us." But the voice came again, louder, more desperate. "Pull me out!" I stumbled back, but Josh grinned wider, like fear only made him braver. He leaned closer, head almost hanging over the opening. And then, I swear, something moved in the darkness. A pale hand shot up, fingers long and claw-like, grasping for Josh's face. He screamed and fell back, barely dodging. The hand scraped the stone rim of the well, leaving deep gouges before retreating into the black. We didn't stick around after that. The next morning, I tried to tell myself it was a trick of the dark, my imagination. But Josh, he wasn't the same. He wouldn't eat, barely slept, said he kept hearing whispers calling his name. And 3 nights later, he vanished. His bike was found leaning against the Miller barn. And when the sheriff looked inside the well, the gouges were deeper, like someone or something had climbed a little higher. The whole town searched for Josh, but deep down, I already knew where he'd gone. I didn't tell anyone about the hand. Who would believe me? The official story was that Josh ran away. His parents put up posters. The sheriff organized search parties. But after a few weeks, the case went cold. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about the well. One evening, I forced myself back to the Miller farm. The place was even worse in daylight. Barn sagging like a drunk old man. Weeds taller than my waist. The well sat there in the clearing, silent, waiting. I approached slowly, heart pounding. The gouges on the rim were worse than I remembered. 5 distinct scratches, like fingernails digging through stone. When I leaned over, I didn't hear water. I heard voices. Not one voice this time, many. They whispered over each other in tones that made my stomach twist. Some begged for help, others laughed cruel and broken. One voice, Josh's voice, rose above them all. "Come down. It's not so bad down here." I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. That night, I couldn't sleep. My dreams were filled with the sound of dripping water and Josh's voice echoing from somewhere below me. When I woke up, my sheets were damp, as though the air itself had been seeping through. I needed answers. So I went to the oldest man in town, Mr. Holloway, who'd lived through 3 generations on that land. He was nearly blind, but when I mentioned the Miller farm, his cloudy eyes sharpened. "You stay away from that well, boy," he said. "That thing's been hungry since before I was born." He told me a story. Back in the late 1800s, when the Miller family first settled there, children began disappearing from town. At first, people blamed wolves or bandits or even the swamp nearby. But one night, a mother claimed she saw her missing son standing by the Miller well. Only it wasn't her son anymore. His eyes were black, and he was whispering in a language she didn't know. The town formed a mob, stormed the Miller farm, and threw a torch into the well. They swore they heard screams rising from below, hundreds of them. The Millers abandoned the property soon after, and nobody ever filled the well. "Evil don't drown," Mr. Holloway whispered. "It waits." I should have listened, but instead I went back a third time. This time, I brought a flashlight. The beam cut down into the black, but the well went deeper than it should have, deeper than any man-made hole I'd ever seen. And for just a moment, I thought I saw faces in the stone, mouths open, eyes wide, pressed into the rock like they'd been swallowed alive. That's when I heard Josh again. "We're waiting for you." And then the flashlight died. The darkness wasn't just dark, it was alive. Something climbed. I ran tripping over the weeds and didn't look back until I was on the road. But even then, I swear I heard the sound of wet, dragging fingers clawing at the stone behind me. After that night, I swore I wouldn't go near the farm again. But the well didn't need me to. It followed me. It started small. I'd hear dripping water in my room, even though there were no leaks. My shoes by the bed would be damp in the morning. Sometimes, when I walked past a mirror, I thought I saw Josh standing behind me, his lips moving soundlessly. Then other people in town began to disappear. First was Clara Bennett, a quiet girl from school. She went missing walking home from a late shift at the diner. Her backpack was found in a ditch, soaked, even though it hadn't rained in weeks. Then it was Deputy Harris, one of the few who'd searched for Josh. He was last seen near the Miller property, following up on a tip. They found his cruiser abandoned on the dirt road, headlights still on. The driver's seat was wet. Every time, I knew where they'd gone. The well was feeding again. I wanted to tell someone, but what could I say? That a hole in the ground was swallowing people whole? That I heard voices no one else could? They'd lock me up. But one night, my mom found me standing in the backyard at 3 a.m., barefoot, staring at the woods. When she asked what I was doing, I told her the truth without thinking. "They're calling me." The look on her face still haunts me. Fear, yes, but not surprise. Later that week, I overheard my parents whispering. My mom was crying, my dad saying, "It's happening again." Again. I confronted them, demanded answers. After a long silence, my father admitted something I'll never forget. When he was my age, his best friend went missing too. Same well, same whispers, same gouges in the stone. "The Millers didn't dig that well," he said quietly. "It was already there. Older than the farm, older than this town. They just built on top of it." I asked him if he ever went down there himself. His face turned pale. No one climbs down and comes back. That night, I dreamed of Josh again, but this time he wasn't begging. He was smiling. His skin was pale and waterlogged, his lips blue, eyes black like the bottom of the well. And when he spoke, his voice wasn't his. It was many voices, all at once. "We're not lost. We're waiting. And you're coming down too." I woke to find muddy handprints on my windowsill. Too large to be mine. Too wet to be a dream. By now, the whole town was on edge. Too many people had gone missing, all without a trace. Parents kept their kids indoors. Farmers stopped working their fields after dark. But no one said the word well. Not out loud. It was like the town had made a silent pact. Pretend it doesn't exist, and maybe it won't notice us. But it noticed me. Every night, I heard Josh outside my window. Sometimes it was a knock on the glass. Sometimes it was just his voice, low and wet, whispering my name. The smell of moldy water would seep into my room, thick enough to make me gag. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to Sheriff Wallace, told him everything. He didn't laugh. He didn't even look surprised. He just stared at me for a long time before sighing. "You should have kept quiet, son," he said. Then he told me the truth. The sheriff's father had been part of the mob that tried to burn the well back in the 1800s. But it hadn't worked. Whatever was inside wasn't just in the water. It was in the ground itself. A thing older than the town, older than people. Something that fed. "The well takes a few every generation," the sheriff said grimly. "That's the bargain. That's why the town still stands." I asked him what he meant, and he said something that made my blood run cold. "If it doesn't get fed, it comes looking." That explained why no one filled it, why no one demolished the farm. The whole town had been protecting it, feeding it. My friend Josh hadn't just been unlucky, he'd been chosen. And now, it wanted me. That night, I dreamed again. Only this time, I wasn't standing at the edge of the well. I was inside it, the stone walls pressed in around me, slick and cold. Faces shifted in the rock, mouths open in silent screams. Water rose around my chest, freezing, pulling me down. Above me, the circle of moonlight shrank smaller and smaller. Josh's face appeared in the opening, grinning down at me. "It's almost your turn." I woke choking on water. My sheets were soaked. My lungs burned as if I had drowned. And on the floor beside my bed was a trail of wet footprints, leading from the window straight to where I slept. The footprints haunted me. They weren't just wet. They were muddy, like something had crawled out of the ground and into my room. I knew I couldn't wait anymore. The well wasn't going to stop. If I didn't face it, it would drag me down eventually, just like Josh, just like the others. So the next night, I armed myself with a flashlight, a rope, and a crowbar, and I returned to Miller's farm. The moon was full, silver light spilling over the collapsed barn and choking weeds. The well stood waiting, its rim gleaming slick with moisture. Whispers leaked from its throat, louder than before, twisting together in a chorus of hunger. "Join us. Come down. We're waiting." I tied the rope around the base of a dead oak and looped the other end around my waist. Then, with a deep breath, I leaned over the edge and started climbing down. The walls were damp, slimy, covered in faint carvings I hadn't noticed before. Not names, faces, hundreds of them, pressed into the stone. Some looked like they were screaming. Others were smiling. All of them were watching me. The deeper I went, the colder it got. My breath came out in clouds. My flashlight flickered, and for a moment I saw movement below me, shapes writhing in the black water. And then I heard Josh. "Come on, man," he said, cheerful, like nothing was wrong. "It's not so bad down here. Just let go." When I shone my light, he was there. floating in the water 30 feet below. But it wasn't really him. His skin was gray, bloated. His eyes were empty sockets, water spilling from them like tears. Dozens of other faces bobbed around him, rising from the water like corpses. Men, women, children. Some I recognized, some long gone before my time. They all stared up at me with lifeless eyes. Then the rope jerked, hard. Something below had grabbed it. I clung tight, screaming, as unseen hands pulled, the fiber strained, creaking, about to snap. My flashlight slipped from my grip and fell into the water below. In its last beam before it sank, I saw them. Arms. Dozens of pale, bloated arms reaching up, claws scraping the stone, desperate to pull me down. I climbed with everything I had left. The rope burned my palms raw, but I didn't stop until I rolled over the rim, gasping, heart pounding. Below me, the well screamed. Not voices. Something deeper, older. A howl that shook the earth, rattled the stones, and split the night air. I scrambled back, clutching my bleeding hands as the whispers turned into a single furious roar. "You are already ours!" I ran and never looked back. The sheriff found me the next morning, collapsed on the roadside. He didn't ask what happened. He just said quietly, "It let you go." For now. I moved away a year later, but the well has never left me. Sometimes I still hear Josh's voice on the phone, though the line is dead. Sometimes I wake to find my floor wet, the smell of mold heavy in the air. And once, I swear I heard dripping water in my apartment hallway, 10 states away from that cursed town. The well is patient. And one night, when I'm too tired, when I stop fighting, I know I'll hear the final whisper at my ear. Time to come down. Every town has that one building nobody talks about. In mine, it was the old church on Ashwood Hill. It stood on the edge of town, its steeple crooked, its doors chained shut for as long as I could remember. The stained glass windows were cracked, and the roof sagged like it might collapse any second. Parents told us it was condemned, unsafe. But kids whispered other stories. They said if you pressed your ear against the door at midnight, you could hear singing. Not hymns, something darker. They said candles still burned inside, though nobody had entered for decades. When I was 16, my friend Emily dared me to go with her and check it out. "We'll prove it's just an old building," she said, with that mischievous grin of hers. We biked up the hill at dusk. The church loomed against the reddening sky, its shadow long and crooked. The closer we got, the colder the air felt. The front doors were chained, but one of the side windows was cracked open. Emily slipped inside first, then helped me through. The inside was worse than I expected. Pews coated in dust, walls peeling, the altar draped in rotting cloth. The air stank of mold and something metallic, like old blood. But what froze me in place were the candles, dozens of them arranged in a circle on the floor, fresh wax still dripping. And in the center, carved into the wood, was a symbol I'd never seen before, jagged, twisting lines that seemed to move if you looked too long. Emily whispered, "Someone's been here, recently." That's when we heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the back of the church. We hid behind the pews, hearts hammering, as a group of figures entered. Cloaked in black, faces hidden, each one carrying a candle. They moved in silence, forming a circle around the symbol. Then they began to sing. It wasn't any language I recognized. Low, guttural, rising and falling in unnatural patterns that made my skin crawl. The air grew heavy, the shadows deepened, and the symbol on the floor began to glow faintly red. Emily grabbed my arm, eyes wide. "We need to get out." But before we could move, one of the cloaked figures stopped singing. Slowly, their hood turned toward us. And though I couldn't see their face, I knew they'd already seen us. The hooded figure didn't shout or move. They just stared. The singing slowed, then stopped until the entire church was silent. One by one, the other cloaked heads turned toward us. Dozens of hidden eyes, all fixed on where Emily and I crouched behind the pews. My chest tightened. My instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Then the figure at the front of the circle spoke. "Children," the voice rasped, "you should not be here." Emily squeezed my hand. We were just leaving," she stammered. The figure lifted their candle, and I caught a glimpse of their face under the hood. It was Mrs. Dalton, my next-door neighbor, the same woman who baked pies for the school fair, who patted my head when I mowed her lawn. Only her eyes were wrong. Pupils too wide, irises ringed with red. "You've seen what must not be seen," she said. "You've heard the song." My stomach dropped. These weren't strangers. They were townsfolk. Familiar voices rose from beneath the hoods. Mr. Keene, the hardware store owner, Principal Myers, even Sheriff Wallace. All of them part of this. All of them staring at us. Emily whispered, "We need to run. Now." But the circle shifted, cloaks brushing against the dusty floor, cutting off every exit. The chanting began again, louder now, vibrating in my bones. The symbol on the floor pulsed with light, red spreading like blood through the wood. Then something answered, from beneath the church. A deep, hollow thud, like something massive shifting below the floorboards. The ground trembled. Dust fell from the rafters. The symbol in the center split open, revealing a crack, no, a mouth, black and wet, with something inside writhing like it was eager to escape. Emily screamed. The cult didn't even look at us anymore. Their arms raised, voices rising to a frenzy. The thing in the floor pressed against the opening, stretching, pushing. I swear I saw a hand, or claws, straining through the gap. That's when survival kicked in. I grabbed Emily's wrist, yanked her toward the window we'd come through. Somehow, the cult hadn't blocked it. Maybe they were too focused on their ritual. Maybe they thought we'd already been claimed. We dove through, scraping our arms on the broken glass, and hit the ground running. Behind us, the singing grew frantic. The earth shook harder. I didn't look back until we were halfway down the hill, lungs burning. And when I did, I wished I hadn't. Through the broken church window, I saw the symbol blazing bright red, lighting up the pews. And in the glow, just for a second, I saw something enormous rising from the crack in the floor. Pale, glistening, with too many arms, the window shattered outward. And the singing stopped. Emily and I didn't stop running until we reached Main Street. Even then, we collapsed on the curb, gasping, shaking, barely able to speak. What was that?" Emily wheezed. "I don't know," I said, clutching my ribs. "But they saw us. They all saw us. We should have gone straight to someone, called the state police, called anyone outside town. But who would believe us? Two teenagers breaking into an abandoned church, claiming the sheriff and the school principal were summoning whatever that thing was. Still, we tried. We went to Emily's house first. Her mom was sitting in the kitchen, sipping tea. We burst in, wild-eyed, tripping over each other's words, trying to explain what we'd seen. She listened quietly, too quietly. Then she smiled. "You shouldn't have gone up there," she said softly. "It wasn't your place." Emily froze. "Mom?" Her mom reached out, stroking her cheek. "You'll understand one day, darling. It's for the good of the town. That's when I saw it. Her eyes, just like Mrs. Dalton's. Wide pupils, faint rings of red. Emily shoved me toward the door. Go! Now! We bolted into the night again, terror twisting our guts. If her mom was part of it, how many others were? How deep did this go? The answer came quicker than I wanted. The next morning, the town was buzzing. Everyone claimed there'd been an earthquake, a small one, centered near Ashwood Hill. No damage, nothing serious, just a tremor. But when Emily and I tried to talk about what we'd seen, people's faces hardened. My own dad told me to stop spreading nonsense. Mr. Keene from the hardware store stared at me too long, his smile thin and sharp. That night, Emily called me in a panic. They're watching my house, she whispered. There's a car parked outside, lights off. I think it's them. I told her to sneak out the back, to come to my place. She never made it. The next morning, her parents claimed she'd gone to visit her aunt in another town, packed a bag, left overnight. I knew it was a lie. Her bike was still in her garage. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the thing in the church, pressing through the crack, the town's leaders singing to it. Finally, I decided to go back, alone. I told myself it was to find proof, to get something, anything, that I could show an outsider. But the truth was, I needed to know what happened to Emily. Ashwood Hill loomed like a black tooth against the moonlight. The church was silent now, its windows dark. The chains on the front doors were gone. Inside, the candles were gone too. The pews had been rearranged. The floor where the symbol had been carved was scrubbed clean as if nothing had ever been there. But I could still smell it, that metallic tang. And in the silence, if I listened hard enough, I could still hear something moving beneath the floor. Not gone, just waiting. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw Emily's face, her hand clutching mine in the dark church, her scream as we ran, and then her voice on the phone, whispering that she was being watched. By morning, I made a decision. If the entire town was in on it, I'd have to find someone outside. Proof, evidence, something nobody could deny. I skipped school and biked to the town library. Most of the records were useless. Newspapers only went back 50 years. But in the archives, in a dusty basement drawer, I found something older. An account from 1891. It spoke of the founding families of Ashwood, who bound themselves in covenant with the earth below, ensuring prosperity in exchange for devotion. The article never said what the earth below meant, but there were hints. Livestock that grew unnaturally fast, crops that never failed, sicknesses that seemed to pass by the town untouched. Buried in the margins was a symbol drawn in ink. Jagged, twisting lines. The same one I'd seen carved into the church floor. I shoved the article in my backpack, heart pounding. Proof. But when I stepped outside, Sheriff Wallace was waiting by his cruiser. "Library's closed today," he said flatly. "What are you doing poking around, son?" I stammered something about homework, but his eyes lingered too long, cold and knowing. Finally, he let me go. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I biked to the next town over, found a payphone, and dialed the state police. My voice shook as I explained. Rituals, cultists, my missing friend. They promised to send someone, but nobody came. When I returned home that night, my dad was waiting in the living room. On the table in front of him was the article I'd stolen. He didn't yell. He didn't even look angry. Just tired. "You shouldn't have done that," he said. My throat closed. "You're one of them," he sighed. "Son, you don't understand. Everything we have, everything this town is, it's because of what we give. Sacrifice for protection. Emily. I lunged at him, screaming before he could finish. He grabbed my shoulders, holding me still with frightening strength. "Listen to me," he growled. "You can't run from this. None of us can. You're part of it, whether you like it or not." That night, I locked my bedroom door. My window stayed open, just in case I needed to jump and run. At 2 a.m., I heard it again. The chanting. Faint, carried on the wind from Ashwood Hill, and mixed with it, screaming. I knew that voice. Emily. I didn't think. I grabbed a flashlight and my bike and rode toward the church. The doors were wide open now, light spilling from inside. The townsfolk stood in a circle again, cloaks swaying, voices rising. In the center wasn't just the symbol this time. It was Emily, tied to the altar. Her eyes met mine as I crept through the broken window, tears streaking her face. She shook her head violently. "Go! Don't!" But I couldn't, because the crack in the floor was opening again. And this time, something was climbing out. Emily thrashed against the ropes, her muffled cries swallowed by the chanting. The cult raised their hands higher, and the floor split wide open. From the crack, a pale arm clawed upward, skin like wax, fingers too long, nails black and wet. Another arm followed, then something like a head, bulbous and pulsing, faceless except for a single gaping mouth ringed with teeth. The thing pulled itself free, glistening in the candlelight. The pews shook with every heave of its massive body. The cloaked townsfolk dropped to their knees, chanting louder, "Ashwood forever, Ashwood eternal." I didn't think. I bolted toward the altar, slamming into the circle. Someone grabbed at me, but I drove my flashlight straight into their face. They collapsed with a howl. I scrambled to Emily, fumbling with the ropes. "Hold on! I got you!" The creature's mouth opened, releasing a sound that wasn't just noise. It was pressure, vibration, something that shook my insides and made my teeth ache. Emily screamed. Candles burst, spraying wax across the pews. I yanked her free, dragging her toward the broken window. But the cult wasn't going to let us go this time. Mrs. Dalton stepped in front of us, hood thrown back, eyes glowing red. "You don't understand," she hissed. "It's for all of us. It keeps us safe." I shoved past her, Emily clutching my arm. But Sheriff Wallace was already at the window, blocking the way. His gun gleamed in the firelight. "You run, the whole town suffers," he growled. Behind us, the creature dragged itself further out of the crack, massive body filling the altar space. Its arms whipped outward, slamming into pews, crushing wood like paper. Its mouth gaped wider, drool sizzling on the floor. Emily grabbed my hand. "We can't fight it. The lanterns, knock them over." Together, we lunged for the candles. The cloak screamed, rushing to stop us. But it was too late. One by one, the flames toppled, catching the old dry wood. The church filled with smoke, heat licking upward as the fire spread fast. The creature shrieked, recoiling, slamming its arms against the floor. The crack widened, chunks of wood splintering, beams groaning overhead. The cult screamed, not in fear, but in anger. "You'll kill us all," I didn't care. Emily and I fought our way through, shoving bodies aside, choking on smoke. At the last second, I spotted a gap, an opening where the wall had collapsed under the fire's heat. We dove through, hitting the grass outside. Behind us, the church roared as flames consumed it, black smoke pouring into the sky. I turned just once. Through the collapsing roof, I saw the creature thrashing, its pale arms flailing, mouth snapping in rage. And then the floor gave way entirely. dragging it back down into the earth with a sound like 1,000 bones snapping. The hill shook one final time, then silence. The church crumbled inward, swallowed by fire and ash. By sunrise, there was nothing left but charred ruins. The town gathered, faces grim but resigned. Nobody asked what happened. Nobody questioned why the church had burned, or why Emily and I stood there, covered in soot and blood. They just stared. And in their eyes, I saw no defeat, no fear, only patience. That night, my dad came to my room. His hands trembled as he sat on the edge of my bed. "You think you stopped it," he whispered, "but you didn't. The covenant isn't broken. It never breaks. The fire just sent it back to sleep." He looked at me, tears in his eyes. "And one day, son, it'll wake again. And when it does, you'll have to choose, like we all did." I left Ashwood the next morning. Emily, too. We never spoke about it again, never told anyone what we saw. But sometimes, when I dream, I still hear the chanting. And in those dreams, I'm back on Ashwood Hill, staring into the crack in the floor. And I know, one day soon, it'll open again.
If you enjoyed this nightmare, like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.